Welcome to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast. I'm your host, Maritza Barone. In this show, I will introduce you to ideas, concepts, and mindsets that will open your mind to a new world of well-being and personal life growth. Through eye-opening interviews, we elevate people in the world doing amazing things for humanity and share insights that will shift you to become the happiest, healthiest, kindest, and most compassionate version of you. Hello and welcome to this brand new episode of Things You Can't Unhear. Now, today I have a very special guest and friend of mine on the show. Her name is Jennifer McCormack. She's a kinesiologist and a personal development coach. Now, Jennifer was one of the first people I interviewed on this show when we launched it back in early 2019. So it's been exactly 2 years since that interview, which continues to be listened to every single week. And people message me regularly to ask for her contact details, as I also reference her continuously in my show. Jennifer has helped me, my husband, my kids, and many of my friends find clarity and meaning in our lives. She has such a special knack of guiding people with their own inner wisdom, and her powerful words tend to circulate in your mind for many years. As a kinesiologist, she believes our mind, physical body, and spirituality all work in harmony with one another. And if one aspect is out of balance, the others can be affected too. So welcome, Jen. I am so thrilled to have you here with me today.
Thank you so much, Marissa. I always love having a chat with you. So let's see where today goes.
I'm excited too. Look, we tend to be barefoot every time we have interviews together. So I'm just checking, do you have shoes on right now?
Marissa, I rarely wear shoes, so yes.
You're barefoot?
Definitely.
Yep, I am also barefoot. So the tradition continues here today. I absolutely 100%. Love it. I mean, we're grounding, right? We're connecting to the earth.
Absolutely. I always, every now and then, I pick myself up and go, you know what? I love that I've created a career for myself where I actually don't have to wear shoes.
It's so true. Because you haven't always been in this line of work. You've been a corporate girl for much of your life as well, haven't you?
Absolutely. I was in fashion for 17 years.
So, as you say in a lot of your work, life is a continuous journey of self-discovery. And I think since the last time you've been on this show and since we had a chat on the podcast, we are both probably completely different people and have evolved in such different ways. I know that I definitely have. Do you feel the same way?
100%. I know for me, I've been doing intense work on myself, especially in the last 18 months, 2 years. So totally different version of me is what sits in front of you today, Maritza.
Do you think self-discovery and personal growth, obviously you think it's important because you work in that line of work, but how integral is it to continuously evolve to our happiness?
Well, I think it's funny you say that, because how I perceive happiness now is very different from how I would have even perceived it a year ago. And this personal development work is not only important to help create your life rather than be reactive to other people and society's lives around you, but I've also discovered that, you know, on an intellectual level, we know that happiness is not something to discover. And we know that it is part of the journey. But what I've really consciously realized within myself is that happiness is always there. It's just sometimes a little bit buried underneath maybe some anxiety, maybe some pressures, maybe some guilt, whatever we're feeling on a day-to-day level on the surface. Happiness is actually under all of that. And then when we start to discover, you know, what those emotions are and how we have to work through them, happiness automatically rises. We don't have to seek it. And it's so fun actually experiencing that.
I love that, because I've seen that firsthand with my husband, and a lot of you who regular listeners of this show would have heard my husband's podcast episode about 3 months ago that I shared. It has just been the most listened to episode ever on the whole podcast, and people really connected with his story because it turns out it's such a common story with so many people. We live our lives going day to day, having the routine, chasing our tails, and then get to a certain point and realize that we are bitterly unhappy and we don't know what the next step is to take. And, I referenced you quite a lot in that episode with Charles because you were the first person that he went to see that really helped him to find clarity and purpose in his life. And our whole relationship changed because of him coming to see you. You really sparked something inside of him to want to explore the pursuit of happiness, I suppose, further, and not only just find it within himself, but even sharing his story. He's found that he's helped so many of his friends and new people that have come into his life, and people who have been out of his life for a long time came through and contacted him from that. So, I mean, that is what you do for people. It is such an incredible tool that you have. When someone comes to see you, Jennifer, as a kinesiologist and as a personal development coach, when someone comes to see you and they're so unsure of themselves, they're unhappy, they don't know why, they don't know what's next, how do you even begin to start with someone like that when they're sitting in front of you?
I think the first thing, Maritza, that I think it's most important is that it's okay exactly where you are. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel lost. And it's almost imperative that you feel it. And because most of us have ignored it for so long, to the point where we can't ignore it anymore, and that's when they end up in here. So it is okay to be upset. It is okay to feel down. It is okay to feel guilty. It is okay to feel. The amount of people, Maritza, that I've listened to in the last month that have said to me, I'm on antidepressants because I feel sad. And I'm like, you're allowed to feel sad. You are. You're allowed to feel lost. That's just step one. Step one is feeling it. Step two is acknowledging that you feel it. And step three is, okay, what do I do now? And it's really important that we understand is sometimes we don't have all the answers for ourselves. And when we are stuck in the depth of the feeling, sometimes we just need a little bit of an external perspective to help us. A lot of us go through life feeling that we have to do it ourselves. We have to be Superwoman, Wonder Woman. It's so funny. I had a client in here yesterday and we're talking about Wonder Woman. And I don't know if you've actually seen the latest movie. I saw it with my kids a couple of months ago. And I had to laugh because Wonder Woman didn't even want to be Wonder Woman for a certain amount of time. And we put her on this pedestal as women sometimes, thinking that we have to be all and do all, and we have to be the perfect mum and the perfect wife, and we have to look like we've got it all together, and we have to have amazing hair, and our nails have to be perfectly done, and whatever it is. And yet we're falling apart on the inside, but we're trying so hard to keep it together when not even Wonder Woman wanted to do that. It's like you don't have to keep putting on a show because you're not putting on the show for yourself. So it's imperative that we feel into and feel safe feeling into what we're currently feeling. And you're so right, Maritza. It's like when you said how Charlie's story resonated with so many people is because if we actually felt safe letting people know exactly how we feel, we would notice that most of the people around us feel exactly the same and therefore wouldn't feel so lonely. A lot of us feel that we're going through these, through these moments alone, but everyone is going through something similar. Yeah, on different levels, but our journey really doesn't differ. I look at the client forms that I get people to fill in before they come in. And I can tell you 75% of them, all the same boxes are ticked. The same boxes with emotional pain, the same boxes with physical pain. And yes, I do attract a certain type of person. So there's that too. But it really just shows when we look at the mind and the body and how everything plays out, the same emotional pain, whether it's sadness, depression, anxiety, converts into the same physical pain, whether it's back pain, stomach aches, food intolerance, period pain. It's like all the same boxes are checked. And if we just felt safe in the community to talk about it, the person next door is going through the same thing.
I want to talk about that mind-body connection in just 1 second. But when you talk about the people that come through and all of those issues that you just mentioned, for Charlie and a lot of the people that I know, and even myself, it was we felt guilty feeling unhappy because why? I mean, we felt as though we had everything that we were supposed to have. We had a house, we had kids that were healthy and happy, we had a marriage, we had a job, we had, so all the things that we're told are going to make us happy, we had them, yet there was still some element of going, hang on, but why? Then I don't, there's got to be more to this. Like, what is it out there that's actually going to make me deeply happy for a long period of time? And we found very quickly that it's not the house and not, not all of those external things that are going to make us happy.
It's funny, Maritza, I was speaking to my son. My son's 10, and this might have been during COVID when we were doing a lot of online shopping. And he received something in the post. I can't even remember what it was. And he goes, Mum, I've noticed that this makes me happy for a period of time, and then I just go back to feeling the same way. And I'm like, man, you're a smart little kid. But it's true. All these external things, we want them because we think it's going to solve a problem, right? And it's going to solve how we feel. We want the dress because it makes us feel a bit of confident. We want the house because it feels good. But all what these are trying to do is fulfill an internal void. So our job is to find out what is that internal void. Is it to make me feel more accepted? Is it to make me feel more loved? What internal void is it really trying to fill? And this is what all this stuff does. And this goes, but like we can go deep and go into childhood wounds, because essentially that's where it all comes from. If we have a parent that doesn't parent us the way we want to be parented, there's a void that is not, there is a void there. There's something that's not filled. And now why I language it that way is because, as you know, as a mum, we do the best we can. But sometimes it's not exactly how our children want to receive our love. There's so many love languages. How do they receive it? We tend to give love how we receive it. For me, I love touch. I give lots of hugs to my kids. I give lots of kisses. And one day I sat down with my son and I went, how do you know Mummy loves you? And he goes, because you spend time with me. And I'm like, I
love that.
I've been giving you hugs and kisses because that's how I express love. But I love you because it's time that you want. So if we didn't know this growing up and our parents didn't know this, our love language is so disconnected. So therefore there's a void that we grow up, our parents didn't love us because they didn't spend time with me. But yet Mum cooked everything. She baked for us. She gave us hugs. She gave us kisses. She bought us everything we needed. But yet I still didn't feel loved because they didn't get the time.
How do you know Mummy loves you? I am going to go and ask my kids that as soon as we finish with this. That is such a bloody good question, Jennifer, to ask your kids, because then you know what's working and you can do more of it if it's working well. And if it's not working well, you do less of it. So I love that. I think everyone should go out there, parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents. How do you know that I love you? Even in your relationships, that's a perfect question to ask.
And when we look in relationships, Maritza, especially in our generation, because our generation, we learned from our parents, right? So traditionally, I'm going to say traditionally because not everyone is the same. A man traditionally wants show his love through the effort he puts in and what he brings to the table as a breadwinner. Traditionally. So if he's bringing everything to the table, if he's bringing in the money, if he's bought a beautiful house for his family, a lot of the time the relationships still feel disconnected because we're not expressing our love to each other in the right way that we want to receive it. So if you don't want money, if you don't want the beautiful stuff, and that's not your love language, you're going to feel empty. You're going to feel unsupported. You're going to feel resentful and you're going to feel anger. So yeah, unless you know, there's always going to be a void there.
And our kids and our partners and anyone in our lives, they're not mind readers, are they? So unless we figure it out and we find out ourselves or we ask, no one's ever going to know. This is genius.
Yes.
See what I mean? And your words just circulate. They're going to circulate in my mind for years after this. It's so, how do we find out our love languages? I mean, that's a perfect question to ask right now is, getting clear on what we actually like, because many of us haven't even stopped to think about how we like to be loved ourselves.
Yeah, there is a great book called 5 Languages of Love. Give it a read. It goes into the depths of it, and it's a really good place to start. Also, even asking yourself, how do I know I feel loved? What is it? Is it words of affirmation? Is it being touched? Is it buying little gifts for me? Is it the other person being spontaneous? And you might have like a hierarchy. Like I know I'm loved when I can have a deep conversation with someone. Beyond the ins and outs of the day. Like let's have some depth. Touch. I love touch. Like give me a good hug and you've got me forever.
Same.
they're the sorts of things that I crave. And probably
I'd love to know. Oh, sorry, yeah. Jennifer. I would love to know because this is our relationship to a T. I'm the one who is exactly like you. I love touch and I love the really deep conversations, and that's exactly how I know I'm loved. But my husband is not that affectionate person. So when you're with someone who isn't perhaps don't have the same types of love languages, how do you communicate that without sounding needy or whingy or whatever, insert another word of that kind? How do you communicate that to your partner?
There's so many different ways, Maritza, but I think especially when you're in a relationship just doesn't blossom and bloom and evolve with no effort. Yeah. So let's go back to the kids scenario. If I know my child receives my love and knows that I love him through time, I'm going to make an effort to give him more of my time. Yeah. So if I know he wants touch, I'm going to make sure that maybe when I pass him in the hallway, I'm going to give him a little tickle under the arm, or give him a little hug, or I'm going to grab him and give him a big smooch. Like when we love someone and we want to show them that we love them, we're going to put in the effort. And I guess this is where personal development is really important, because if touch makes us feel uncomfortable, let's explore that. It's something that you need to explore on your own with your therapist, or let's explore it together. Why do I feel so uncomfortable being touched? With deep conversations, there's this great card set which I've been I recommended to a few of my clients from an American relationship psychologist. It's called Create the Love Cards, and I've got all these questions to help prompt you into a deeper conversation. And it goes 2 ways. So you can pick, one card up for the evening and both answer the question. And they're probably questions that you've never thought of yourself, but it just helps you, get into creating that deep space between you.
It's very funny you say that, because conscious conversations, which as you know is my company and you've facilitated at some of the events and spoken to them, we've just launched conversation starter cards, which are very similar to what you explained. And they're prompts in order to have these deeper connections with people in our lives. And whether it's in our relationships, intimate relationships, or whether it's with our children or our parents or our work colleagues or anyone where you're feeling disconnected, and to see them on a completely different level is so, so powerful. So I'm totally on the same page with you there. And that's why, you know, we started running our events and having these sections as part of our events after a keynote discussion where people would have conscious conversations themselves. And we saw how magical it was and how deeply they connected with one another. And every time they exchanged numbers and wanted to remain, you know, friends and keep talking. So it is really special. And I suppose if you're doing it with someone who you already pass in the house every single day, but perhaps don't have that time to go deeper with them, mate, your relationships are going to be absolutely blooming when you have that just put that time and effort. Like you said, effort is a big key to making relationships.
Absolutely. Even I've noticed with my son, I think my elder son is way more advanced mentally, emotionally for his age. Just having that one-on-one time with him, man, we've had some interesting conversations. Like, we've had conversations on topics that, you know, you wouldn't normally have with a 10-year-old, but we've allowed that space to happen where you feel so comfortable talking about it. And which actually opened up to a really good point the other day where there was a bullying incident at school, and he felt so comfortable telling me that, Mum, I was actually involved and I was actually one of those bullies at one stage and I don't know what to do about it. Can you help me through this? It's like, so those general conversations that we have every day helps us be more vulnerable when we actually really need them.
He's lucky to have you as a mum, isn't he?
Sometimes he'll say yes, sometimes he'll say
no. Sure. I'm sure that's the case. Now, I want to talk about mind-body connection because it's so important in how kinesiology works. Can you talk us through exactly what kinesiology is, just briefly, for anyone who perhaps doesn't know or hasn't been to a session with you, or anyone else who's a kinesiologist? But yeah, just vaguely explain how it works and how it links the mind and body.
Okay, so kinesiology essentially itself is the basis of it is muscle testing. So what is muscle testing? Muscle testing is basically when the muscle relaxes or contracts in response to something. A really good example here is when you're stressed, most of us feel it either in our stomach or our back. So when we have stress, we can feel our back contract, or we can feel our, our muscles in our stomach contract. And that's our body's way of telling us, or something's not right here. So within kinesiology, we use certain muscles. I self-test a lot, which basically means I use my muscles through your energy. And by asking it any yes or no question, your muscles will contract or relax in response to that. So when we look at a basis of a lot of our kinesiology is Chinese medicine, where we look at how every single emotion, every thought is actually stored in certain muscles and organs. For example, when we go to say, what's a good muscle? Let's go our lower back. So that's a lot of big muscle for everyone around our lumbar area. And this is where a lot of depression and holding on to the past is stored. So when we have a lower back issue, this can be one of the main causes. Now, a lot of us that have lived life unconsciously for so long, we have a lot of little ailments happening in our body all at the same time, which end up telling a story. So, and that's what I was talking about before, when a lot of my clients come in with the same problem. So the main things that they'll come in with, especially for women, it would be their upper back, it would be premenstrual problems, sometimes thyroid problems, and then we look at depression and anxiety. So they all link together. So it's not, okay, let's have a look at your PMS. Okay, let's have a look at your upper back. It's like, okay, what is the root cause of it all? And there's always mainly one or two root causes. And when we work with that, the body then has the ability to rebalance itself, both energetically and on a cellular level. So then the pain releases.
So interesting. So I've seen you in action. You've worked obviously on me, but also on my daughter, who was, I think, 4 at the time and just having the worst tantrums. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I have no idea. I'm lost. And you spent, I think, an hour with her. She was lying on the bed and you were energetically working with her. And that next day she had, or that night, I think, probably the worst tantrum in the entire history of the world, right? And I think I called you, I texted you, I was like, Jennifer, what's happening? Like, oh my God. And you're like, okay, hang on, let me energetically check in. And you did. And you said it's going to take, I think, 3 to 4 days. I can't remember the exact amount of time, or I can't remember. Just let's say that before you see a difference in her. And I was like, okay, let's hope so, because that tantrum was off the rails. Anyway, literally 3 days had passed, and we instantly saw, a calmer child, and we did not see a tantrum in her for maybe 8 months. 8 months of no tantrums. And then 1 month, down the track, 8 months later, there's something sparked up, and we're like, wow, remember that? We forgot completely that she has these tantrums. And it worked so, I don't know, it was like magic. It was literally felt like magic.
What it is, Maritza, and there's a couple of things. Yes, when you work on anything energetically, whether you go to the chiro, whether you go to the acupuncturist, whether you come to me, the kinesiologist, the energy doesn't stop shifting when you get off the table.
That's right.
Yeah, we move things around, and it continues to shift until it settles. I like to look at it like as if you've got this beautiful smooth pond of water, and you're going in there and you're ruffling it all around, and then there needs time to settle. So that's the 3 or 4 days. So during that period of time, there can be a lot of releases. I've had people in tears by the end of the day, and all this is just all this pent up emotion releasing. Sometimes we can be sitting on the toilet for the rest of the afternoon. Sometimes we don't feel anything. And every body is very different. So that's what that is. It's just, it needs to get out. And then after that, you start to see and feel and be aware of the progressions it has. Some people don't even notice the progressions until they look back and go, oh, I haven't had a tantrum for 8 months, or, oh, I haven't had that thought for a while. And they don't consciously click until they realize that it hasn't occurred yet anymore.
Yeah.
So it can be quite amazing. And I've also had people, and this has happened to myself, because I feel it's so important that every treatment that I use on people, I have used it on myself first, and I am always the crash test dummy. If it doesn't work, I won't use it.
Yeah. I love that.
That's so important for me. One thing I have noticed in myself with a couple of the methods that I use, and I did this years ago when I was so attached to money as an outcome. And I didn't like the feeling anymore, and I felt really anxious around that belief. And I remember doing this exercise in myself one night, and I woke up the next morning and went, I feel so lost. I feel like I don't have a purpose anymore because I'm no longer attached to that monetary outcome. And I'm like, where do I go from here? So it's like noticing that old belief is gone, and then you then have the ability to create a new one. It's like, okay, what do I want my purpose to be? Let's create now, instead of having allowed for so long society to create your belief for you. You can then now create whatever you want from it.
I love that you brought up that money story, because I think that was something that I really wanted to touch on as well. When people do come to see you, I'm not sure the percentage of the people who come for this reason, but a lot of them are trying to navigate more purpose in their lives. And that might mean changing careers or, completely turning things around in the way that they've done with their work for so long. So I talk about this a lot on the show, and there's always that bridging moment between, bridging it financially when we're going from one career and you're moving to that next thing in your life where you know nothing about, or you're starting a new business, but there's that space in between where you actually still need to have money coming in and bridging that financial gap. So when you talk to your clients, what advice can you give people? I know I give my own advice on this, but I'd love to hear what your advice would be for people who need to bridge that gap financially.
This is so interesting because my perspective on this has changed so much throughout the years, because my mindset on it has changed so much throughout the years. And what I would say now is, before you do the jump, learn to trust. Learn to trust in yourself, and learn to trust that you'll land on your feet and that everything will be okay. A lot of us get so tied on to hanging on to a problem until we have the full solution and all the nooks and crannies around it. Sometimes we don't get that. And that's okay. Sometimes the universe is literally asking us to trust it. I will catch you when you fall. And it's like that whole concept of closing one door and another one opens. And this is something that I've always believed on going through my corporate career, is that if you're so unhappy in a job, you don't necessarily have to have another one to go into before you resign. Yeah. And as scary as this feels sometimes, you got to learn to trust yourself. And I remember doing this probably with not one of my last jobs, but in the middle of my career. And I was so unhappy, where I would go to work and I'd be so anxious. And I went, no, I can't do this anymore. Don't have another job, but I can't do it. And I resigned, and I left without a job. So 4 weeks later I left, still didn't have anything. And I think I was on holidays for 1 week before I landed a job. It's like, sometimes you've got to trust. And it's especially with money, because money, as a society, we're so tied to it. A lot of us use it as our status, as our confidence booster. We have so much programming tied to money that when we don't have what we want, it can really set us emotionally back. But the moment we let go of the outcome, the moment we just trust, and through all that, when you hone in on yourself, when you have that sense of awareness, you can start to identify, what is it within me that is triggering these emotions? Yeah. What am I seeing here? What is coming up for me? And when you start working with that, is it I don't feel confident when I don't have that money? Is it I don't feel worthy? Is it that I see what externally to me, what people have materially, and therefore I'm not worthy to fit into society because I don't have X, Y, or Z? And you start healing that part of you, the money just lands.
It's funny, I watched a short video on Elon Musk, and obviously he's one of the wealthiest people on planet Earth, probably in Mars as well. But he said he changed his attachment to money by one day saying to himself, I'm going to, for the next X amount of months, or 12 months, I think it was, spend $1 a day and see if I can live on $1 a day. And he did that. And then he realized he really doesn't need copious amounts of money to survive on this earth. And the money came, right? The money definitely came for him. But the attachment left, the attachment to money, and the money story that he had in his head, because he grew up always needing and wanting, and wasn't from a wealthy family. He wanted to change that mindset, and he did that by knowing that he could survive on just $1 a day if he had to. So I think that's quite fascinating.
And this is why, Maritza, my work has slightly shifted over the years to work consciously with people's beliefs. And sometimes we don't know what our belief is. All I know is that I can't get my money, right? It's like, all right, let's hold that thought, let's hold that feeling, and we take them through a series of neuro reprocessing work. And that is when they can actually notice in their mind their thought patterns changing as they go through it. So then that attachment leaves, and it can even bring them back to scenarios back in their timeline where they're like, oh yeah, I remember a time where, you know, mum didn't have this money, or I wanted something and mum said, no, we can't afford it. Or, you know, those little scenarios in our childhood that start to cement our beliefs towards everything, including money. And then we can just reprocess that back until, you know, we get to what I mentioned before, that point where we're like, okay, what is my new belief?
You know what keeps going through my head right now? I got to book another session with Jennifer. It's so funny. A group of my friends all go to you. They all come and see you. And every time one of us is chatting, or, you know, someone's got an issue in their lives at that particular time, we don't offer advice. We're like, have you booked a session with Jennifer? That's our advice. So you are really so helpful. I know I had a session with you years ago. It was before the podcast launched, and I don't know, you whipped my butt into gear so much in that conversation, in that session, that I think we were in the room for 2 hours, and I don't know, you were swearing at me. You're like, get your shit together, get it happening. You've got everything you need. And you were going at me when you're such a, like, how tall are you? You 5'2"? 5'1". You're like so small and gentle and barefoot and like angelic. And I, you know, you were pressuring me, and I was like, I needed this kick up the butt. I absolutely did. And I got into my car. Firstly, I cried, and then I grabbed a journal, and I don't think I moved from the parking spot for another 45 minutes to an hour, because I just journaled, and I literally had this inspirational energy to go, okay, I'm going to get, I was literally so clear at that particular time, and I knew exactly what I needed to do and how to do it. And I didn't want to lose that moment where I was feeling inspired, and I got it all down, and I literally like went back to it. I'd go and do one thing, and I'd be successful at it, and then I'd go back and like, okay, what's next? What else did we talk about? And so I used those notes for a long time in, you know, in working on my career and continuing to find further purpose in everything that I do. So yeah, you are very powerful, even at 5'1".
Thanks. This is the thing though, Maritza. If you can dream it, you can actually do it. You do not have the power to dream up anything that you cannot execute. And whilst it wouldn't come into your head, it wouldn't be in your conscious awareness. So if you can dream it, 110% you can do it.
Yeah.
The other powerful thing, which resonated with me so deeply years ago, and I remember telling a girl the other day on the table here, and she said to me, I've met this guy and he's amazing, and he is so good at what he does in his craft. And I said to her, you cannot tell if he is good at what he does unless you are also equally as good as what you do. You cannot see the power in someone else unless you have it within yourself.
Powerful.
So if you see beauty in someone, that's because you have it in you. If you see goodness in someone else, that's because you have it in you. If you see someone successful, that's because you have it in you. And whether you are currently expressing that or that is your indication to get your shit into gear, because you can express it because it is within you.
See, yeah.
And the moment we start seeing the world like that, your inner confidence can instantly change.
Yeah. Yeah. My mind's just swimming with different thoughts and ideas and inspiration right now. Yeah. It's powerful words that you've shared. Yeah. Just, I'm actually reflecting on so much of that. I mean, you know, so if people are out there listening and they're like, so much of this resonates with me, so much of what I think about and what consumes my thoughts is resonating with this discussion today. What's your advice to them? Obviously, you do sessions in person, but you also run them online, don't you?
I do a lot of my sessions online. I work with girls, like I'm working with a girl in LA. I've got one in Sweden. I've got one in Miami.
Yeah. Now you've got one
all
in
over
Fiji.
One in Fiji. I've got one in, hey, I have girls on the other side of, and guys on the other side of Melbourne that just don't want to come, or during COVID, like everything's online. But I've been online for years, and it's something that I've always worked with, and all you have to do is connect with me.
With the energy, it makes no difference connecting via a virtual setting.
Energy is energy. We're all part of the same collective energy. And I guess this is something that I've had to learn to trust myself in, that I can connect with energy wherever you are around the world, to the point where I don't even need to see you anymore to connect in with your energy. You know, just like you said before, when your daughter was having a little tanty, it's like, let me just check in with her. And, you know, I've had to learn over the years how to shut it off. But yeah, it doesn't matter where you are. It really doesn't. You know, we're all part of the same universal energy. We're just, you know, honing it in different physical form. So yeah, you can be here on the table. It's like, I want to connect in with you. How are you feeling? And just to sit, you know yourself. Put it this way, as a mum, when you're in bed and you're worried about your daughter in the next room, you know if she's okay or not. Yeah, because you know the feeling within yourself, what is yours and what is not. You know, mothers have that super strong intuition, but we all have that when we nurture it a little bit more and connect in with them. So it's all through intention.
Very, very powerful stuff. If anyone does want to connect with Jennifer, I'll put all of her details in the show notes, because I'm sure after this, you may feel just as inspired as I am to connect with her and have a session. But Jennifer, what is your website, just so people can hear it here too? I'm
simply at jennifermccormack.com.au. Keeping it simple now.
Too easy. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for me, my family, my friends, my colleagues, anyone who has come to see you. You know, you really are changing the world with one person at a time through the work that you do. And I'm a huge raving fan of yours. So thank you for everything that you've shared today as well.
Thank you for your time, Marissa. And I always love having a chat with you. I can sit here for hours.
Thank you for listening to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast. I'd love to keep the conversation going. Let us know what you thought of this episode, and if something profound came up for you that you want to share, let's talk about it. You can find me on Instagram at Things You Can't Unhear, or on my personal page at Maritza_Barone. If someone you know will benefit from something that was said in this show, make sure you share it with them too. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and keep up to date with what's next. And if you can spare a few seconds, please rate and review the show on iTunes, just so other people can find us more easily and quickly. And as always, my friends, be happy, be healthy, be conscious, and be kind.